I want to bring in the Attorney General of Texas now. Ken Paxton joins us on the phone. Sir, good to have you back with us. Thank you.
Always good to be back. Thanks, Vince. I appreciate it.
There's obviously you're dealing with the border crisis right there in a border state, Texas, and have been quite visibly for some time. One of the latest ways that you personally are trying to confront it is the role that these tax-exempt NGOs, non-governmental organizations, are playing. They're taking so much federal taxpayer money, and then they're trafficking human beings into our country. What can you tell me about what's happening right now in your state and elsewhere?
Yeah, so we became aware, or at least we thought we became aware of these NGOs doing exactly what you just said. And so under the Texas Business Organizations Code, we have the authority to regulate nonprofits. We need to make sure that they're operating under the law, and two, to make sure they're not committing some type of fraud. And so that's when we step into looking at charitable organizations and nonprofits. And so we sent what are called just basically almost like interrogatories, questions about their actions. And instead of answering the questions like most charities have always done, they said, no, we're going to sue you for even asking those questions. We're going to sue you in the court of our choice in El Paso. And it was the most I don't even know how to explain. The reaction was so overwhelmingly a backlash against us with a bunch of politicians in El Paso, including the judge, including some congressmen, including some state representatives. It was unbelievable how much backlash we got, which only made me think there must be something here for us to get that kind of backlash for asking questions. We didn't sue them. They sued us. And so because they sued us, now we're pretty much engaged in discovering and trying to discover whether this particular one, Annunciation House, is committing crimes with federal dollars. And right now, we're pretty certain they are.
What kind of crimes might they be committing, in your view?
Mostly human smuggling and aiding and abetting the cartels and their illegal activities. So potentially, I mean, we'll see. We're not done with our we're not done with our lawsuit, and we're getting discovery, but potentially things related to the cartels or trafficking of drugs. Who knows? But we do think they are helping smuggle. They're smuggling individuals illegally across the border.
Yeah. So Annunciation House, which again is the centerpiece of what you're talking about right now. You're locked in this legal battle with them. They're a Catholic nonprofit, which is consistent with some of the other stories we've heard. Catholic Charities receives perhaps the most money out of any of these nonprofit groups to help smuggle people into the United States. And they're not alone. There are other organizations. Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service is one of the big ones, and Jewish Family Services as well. Sir, when I hear the names of these organizations and recognize that historically their mission has been to serve people here in the United States, but they're religious organizations, I do wonder, whatever happened to the left's position that we're supposed to have a separation of church and state? The left has straight up hired religious organizations to advance their agenda.
No, you're exactly right. We're talking about federal dollars. That's your dollars and my dollars to help them accomplish illegal activities. I don't actually have a problem with federal dollars going to charitable organizations to potentially do good work, but I do have a problem with them is violating laws. And what's interesting is when we started this investigation, the first thing they screamed was that I was somehow anti-Catholic, anti-religious, which is not why we started asking the questions. We asked the questions because it appears that they are violating federal law and state law.
Sure, it definitely appears that way. So how much of a role do you think these NGOs play in the border crisis? If they were to stop their activities, if the federal funding specifically were to disappear today, how much would that change what we're experiencing right now?
I think it is having a dramatic impact. I feel like the federal government is laundering money through these NGOs, these nonprofits, because they don't want they can't get away with what these NGOs are getting away with. They hide it under the cover of being charitable organizations. They typically aren't subject to much scrutiny. There's not a lot of media coverage of it. They're just basically ignored by the media. Even when we have this lawsuit, the media still kind of stays away from delving into what's actually going on. But I think this is a significant part of the strategy of the Biden administration is to use non-governmental organizations to accomplish their goals of moving people around and making sure that the Biden administration has these people placed in the appropriate states.
So do you believe that the federal government's giving these religious organizations money because it helps to insulate them from criticism? People are hesitant to criticize religious organizations because you normally assume good faith on the part of religious organizations, not bad faith. Is the idea here to prevent criticism? So Catholic Charities is doing this. How could they be doing something wrong?
Yeah, it's in an evil genius sort of way. Yes, that's what they're doing. They are hiding behind Catholic Charities. Sounds like a great organization. Probably has done some really great things over time. I would suggest I probably like a lot of what they've done in the past. But it's a genius way to cover the trail of smuggling people through the states illegally and putting them in the right locations for your purposes, whatever they are. Of course, I think it's voting, but there could be other purposes as well.
Attorney General Paxton, when these organizations handle people who arrive, so the cartels deliver foreign nationals across our border, they turn themselves in momentarily to the Border Patrol, claiming that they deserve asylum, which begins a years-long court process that most will never see the end of, and they'll just stay in the country. Then these NGOs take over. Who is it? The Biden administration? The Biden administration delivers these people directly to the NGOs. Is that right?
That's my understanding, is that basically the cartels deliver people to the border. The Biden administration understands that because they've directed them, sort of surreptitiously and openly, actually, by saying, we're not deporting anybody, so come on, bring them here. Yeah. And then they go from, the Border Patrol people, they're the logistics people for the cartels and for the Biden administration, and not because they want to be, because they're forced to. And then from there, they get to the NGOs and they get shipped around on planes and buses and however they're looking, but they don't tell states. They don't let Governor Abbott, hey, we got an extra 1 million people for you this year. You okay with that? We're going to put them all here and here and here. And by the way, we've given them Social Security numbers so they can get driver's license and potentially vote. And they don't bother to tell the states, hey, we're going to unload a lot of people on you. Good luck educating, paying for health care, and dealing with crime.
So that's the next point I wanted to get to. These NGOs are operating, their operations in terms of moving human beings are done in secret. Is that right? Because I've seen people try and bring cameras to some of these locations and they're stopped. Doors are shut, fences are closed, bus doors are closed. You can't find out where this is going. It sounds very deceptive for an organization that receives so much public money.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the idea. I think it's to launder the money to them so that they don't have to be transparent. Whereas if it was government, there would be ways to get to the information. Usually there's ways, at least there has been in the past. And with charitable organizations, it's much more difficult to force them unless a state like us steps in, because there's really no other way to get to that information. And so it's a very deceptive, non-transparent way for the Biden administration to funnel funds and funnel people through that organization.
So do you see this as kind of tantamount to what the Biden administration has been doing with the big tech companies? So the government basically abuses the American people, but they use outside organizations to do it, to insulate themselves from criticism and scrutiny.
Yeah, so the Biden administration, they have First Amendment. They can't violate people's First Amendments as a governmental organization. So what they do is they have these tech companies do it through corporations, which don't have the same First Amendment restrictions, but effectively it's a cooperation agreement between the Biden administration, or a direction from the Biden administration to, in effect, violate First Amendment rights by using corporations that are sympathetic to the Biden administration cause or causes.
Okay. And then finally, and thank you for your time, Attorney General Paxton.
Yeah, glad to do it.
As you take a look at these guys, these NGOs who are smuggling human beings into our country, if you're a tax-exempt nonprofit and you are aiding and abetting violations of law at any level, state, local, federal, can you lose your tax-exempt status for doing that?
Well, presumably you could. That's a federal decision. I'm not confident that the IRS would do that. That falls under the IRS. We, however, can take away your nonprofit status in Texas and take away your ability to do business in Texas, which then means you no longer qualify for federal tax-exempt status. You don't even have an entity that exists anymore, according to the state of Texas. So presumably then you'd have to move to a state that wouldn't stop you from doing that. And I'm not sure that the Biden administration cares about, they're probably still going to protect them, even though they're not really a tax-exempt qualified entity.
Right. So right now, the only organization that you're locked in a legal battle with, as I understand it, is Annunciation House. Are you treating the other organizations the same way?
Yeah. So when we get information that concerns us, then we start investigating. So there's no doubt that this may lead us to other places. We have so many resources available to us. We're not unlimited like that seems like the federal government is, because we don't print money. We actually have to allocate money that is real. And so this is one of our cases. I would not be surprised if this teaches us that there are other organizations doing similar things.
It seems pretty clear from where we're sitting, all the way in Washington, D.C. Attorney General Ken Paxton, thank you very much of Texas. Really appreciate your time as always, sir.